The alien woman awoke in a blur of silver and shadow. 1 second, she was bleeding out on the narrow cot. The next, she had Kalen pinned against the cracked polycrete, her hand wrapped tightly around his throat, lifting him effortlessly as her armor hummed with dying light. What happens when the life you save is the most dangerous being in the galaxy? Subscribe to find out. 12 hours earlier, the biggest threat to Kalen's throat had been the bitter, recycled coffee of Outpost Echo Delta. Now Tartarus 9 was burning around them. Kalen Vance knelt in the ruins, his gloves slick with crimson as he applied fast foam to Private Mercer's leg. The chemical sealant hissed violently. Kalen pressed his full weight down to hold the trembling soldier still. If he could just clamp No, the artery was too shredded. He needed to apply a manual tourniquet immediately. A low hum, then nothing. The artillery barrage paused just long enough for Captain Taurus's voice to echo through the shattered corridor. Evacuation in 20 minutes, Taurus ordered, her visor webbing with hairline fractures from the shock waves. Leave the expectant. We do not have the stretchers or the hands. A cracked plastic coffee mug rattled off a nearby medical crate, shattering onto the floor. Nobody flinched. The mundane destruction barely registered against the backdrop of total planetary collapse. Kalen ignored the broken plastic and secured Mercer's tourniquet tightly. He was not leaving anyone behind. He pushed himself up, wiping sweat and ash from his forehead. That was when he heard the sound. It was not the heavy mechanical roar of Vorik's exosuits. It was a faint, resonant exhalation coming from beneath a collapsed bulkhead in the southern wing. Kalen switched on a shoulder light and moved toward the debris. He navigated twisted metal and scorched earth until the beam caught a flash of silver. She lay half buried in the wreckage. Her skin was luminous, fractured with dust, and her tapered ears trembled with each shallow breath. Her armor flowed like liquid metal, etched with geometric sigils that pulsed with a fading bioluminescence. Kalen dropped to his knees. His scanner immediately registered multiple fractures and severe plasma burns. He jammed a steel rod under the bulkhead, straining his shoulders until the heavy beam groaned and shifted just enough. He dragged her free. She was impossibly heavy, her dense musculature hidden beneath the failing armor. He hauled her back to the dim triage zone, tucking her onto a cot in the far corner, away from the panicked human infantry. For the next 3 hours, Kalen operated in a haze of pure muscle memory. He cleaned the deep wounds. He applied the heavy suture lines. He stabilized her fading pulse. Exhaustion clawed at his vision. He rested his own forehead against the cool metal of the medical crate for a fraction of a second, letting the fatigue wash over him, before turning back to his patient. The war outside rages on. Join us for the next chapter of the siege. Her breathing deepened. The geometric sigils on her plating shifted from a frantic, erratic pulse to a slow, deliberate throb. Instead of trembling, her muscles locked into rigid, perfect stillness. Kalen leaned over to check her bandages. He reached out, holding a medical scanner near her temple to check for neural trauma. The blur of silver and shadow pinned him against the cracked polycrete. Her grip on his throat was absolute, lifting him entirely off the floor. Kalen did not reach for his sidearm. If she wanted him dead, he would already be. His hands remained completely open, palms facing her, showing nothing but the stained cuffs of his medical uniform. He felt the immense, terrifying gravity of her presence, a physical weight that made it hard to draw breath. "You were dying," Kalen choked out, his voice perfectly steady despite the crushing pressure against his windpipe. There was no interference, just Tria. The glowing sigils on her armor faltered, flickering from hostile crimson back to a bruised violet. The Lumina warrior dropped him, stumbling as the freshly stitched wounds on her abdomen tore open under the strain. He immediately guided her back to the cot, ignoring the lingering ache in his neck, and reapplied the fast foam with practiced, stubborn efficiency. She watched him, her ancient, gold eyes calculating something far beyond his understanding. She introduced herself as Cilia. He didn't care about her titles. He only cared about her stabilizing pulse. Then the perimeter alarm shrieked. Captain Taurus burst into the ward, her voice raw and breathless. The Vorix vanguard had broken the final barricade and were swarming the southern ridge. The alien woman stood. The air pressure in the room dropped instantly, popping Kalen's ears and pulling the loose debris across the floor. "They will not reach this position," she stated. She walked out into the toxic, burning night. Kalen followed her, his boots crunching over discarded ration tins and a crushed datapad. That small, broken screen flickered with a mundane supply manifest, completely irrelevant now, as reality itself seemed to bend around the alien woman. Vorix exosuits fired a relentless barrage of heavy plasma. The plasma simply vanished. She wove through the enemy lines with a fluid, terrifying grace, her bare palms dismantling heavy armor and rupturing power cores with nothing more than a touch, turning a massacre into a silent, absolute execution that left the human soldiers staring in stunned, breathless disbelief as the invincible Vorix vanguard was systematically erased from the battlefield. Cilia's voice then bypassed all comms, hijacking every frequency across Tartarus 9. She announced herself as the Luminous Sovereign, declaring an immediate, non-negotiable withdrawal of all hostile forces under the threat of total eradication. The Vorix fled. They didn't retreat. They evaporated from the hemisphere. Hours later, the sky filled with silent, massive Lumino warships. Inside the crumbling communications room, a holographic council of elders materialized before Kalen. They did not speak of tactics or politics. They spoke of a life dead. Cilia stood beside him, her armor dimmed to a soft, intimate glow. The council explained that by saving her without demanding leverage or reward, Kalen had triggered an ancient, sacred bond. It was a tie that recognized him not as a subordinate, not as a temporary ally, but as an absolute equal to the supreme sovereign. Kalen accepted. He had no idea what this meant for his military career, but he looked at the woman standing beside him and realized he didn't care. He understood her. The holographic projection faded, leaving them alone in the dim, quiet ruins of the comms relay. Cilia turned to him, the heavy mantle of her sovereignty momentarily set aside. Slowly, deliberately, she leaned forward and pressed her forehead firmly against his. It was a silent vow forged in the ashes of a broken world, binding a mortal medic to a living god. What would you do if the universe's most powerful ruler owed you a life debt? Let us know below, and stick around for more tales from the stars.